as you can hear. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining me today. It's so good to see everyone back and to see some new faces this afternoon. So I'm Coach DJ, I'm from rxRecourse, and at rxRecourse, we have partnered up with the Village Hive to bring you our health workshops the third Wednesday of every month for the Wellness Wednesdays. So at rxRecourse, we help teams work and live better by helping you prioritize your health and wellness through a variety of different ways, mainly through our health workshops, our wellness challenges, and a variety of customized health and wellness plans for your employees and your teams. So today, we're going to be looking at and talking about disconnecting and the avoidance of burnout. So based on the last couple of years, due to a lot of rapid changes, a lot of uncertainty, especially around the happenings of the pandemic, the practice of disconnecting has generally dissipated or disappeared. Now, based on the statistics that are out today, Canadians are more burned out now than they have ever been. And so we're going to take a look at what those statistics look like, along with a variety of different ways to not only avoid burnout, but if you're in the midst of it, how you can slowly get yourself out of that. So this workshop today, we are going to be, it is an interactive workshop. So if you could take a moment to either use your phone to scan the QR code that's on your share screen, or if you have availability, or if you are able to open a browser, head on over to menti.com and enter in the numeric code. That'll allow you to participate in today's workshop. So once you do that, send a little heart, a thumbs up. If you want to send a question mark, you're more than welcome to do that, just so I know that you are present in the workshop here. Amazing. So please know that all your responses that you submit through some of the questions and the quizzes that I have in here, don't worry, the quiz is not for marks. It's all going to be anonymous, so feel free to be candid with your responses and with your questions. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to turn the workshop over to you. Do you allocate time to disconnect? So what I mean by that is, do you make time either daily or semi-frequently to disconnect from work, from life, from responsibilities? Let me know. So take a moment, submit your votes.
It's not moving to the next on my phone. It's still staying just with the main screen, disconnecting and avoiding burnout.
Oh, Jane, maybe if you could refresh your screen real quick.
It did the same thing, yeah.
Is it still?
Actually, okay. Let me, I'm just doing it to show, no, it's in reader view.
Are you, okay, so everyone's stuck on the.
I'll just, go back. I'll just open a browser here.
Actually, one moment. Let me just reset here and then we'll see if that helps. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment.
Yep.
And I'm just going to refresh everything here and just see, because I did see everyone's.
It now worked.
It now worked. Okay.
So maybe it was just slow. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. All good. Technical difficulties. This is a day and age for it.
Okay.
Amazing. Okay, so submit your votes. It will slowly pop up through the screen. Sometimes no. Okay, we're going to talk about that. Again, I'm not here to shame you. That's not the purpose of this workshop. This is just an opportunity to really take a look at what your day-to-day looks like and find ways in which you can add in little pockets of disconnecting throughout your day, or even on a semi-regular basis. So Mitch, just give me one moment. So if you head over to menti.com and the code is 55283018. Okay. So thank you all for submitting your votes. I do appreciate that. And this just goes to show that a lot of us don't take the time to disconnect. And that's not a bad thing. Again, this is a moment to take into consideration the fact that we do need to take some time to disconnect, whatever that means to you. And we'll go over what those things are later on in our workshop today. So with that being said, based on Microsoft's annual Work Trend Index, it has been reported that 47% of Canadian workers feel exhausted during a typical workday compared to the 39% global average. It's also been reported that the stress levels of Canadians are higher than the global average at 50%. So Canadians in general are just stressed out, they're burned out, and they're exhausted. In large part, this has to do with the drastic and really sudden changes that were implemented due to the global pandemic that we are slowly coming out of, along with the years of uncertainty that we had in the direction in which our world was going. On top of this, there seemed to be an increase of an inability to create appropriate boundaries between work and home. So boundary setting in the workplace has also been around for a really long time, but it was exacerbated when the shift occurred from the work from home model. So a lot of the time, a lot of the feedback that we have from a lot of our corporate clients has been that there was this inability to fully disconnect from work, and they always felt like they had to be on for responding to emails, Teams messages, etc. And that's shown in a lot of the studies that are being done today. Now, again, I want to just place emphasis as we move forward that not everyone has problems setting workplace boundaries or appropriate boundaries, but this is simply what the trends and the studies have been showing us thus far. So things like receiving 10 p.m. emails, Teams messages being sent at all hours, and the inability to truly disconnect from our day-to-day work-related and life-related tasks is all being shown in the levels of stress, exhaustion, and in the increase of mental health issues among Canadians today. Now, with that being said, Emma Williams, she is the Corporate VP of Microsoft Office's Modern Workplace Transformations, and she said the following: self-assessed productivity has remained the same or higher for many employees, but at a human cost. So what does this mean? Now, it means that our vision of what productivity should look like has been skewed. Employees have been working really, really hard to remain as productive as possible, even given the extremely challenging physical and mental challenges or circumstances in which our world was navigating through without any opportunities to really decompress from those emotions, from those stress levels, from the things that were occurring externally and the things that we did not have full control over. Now, for organizations, this is a great thing. Productivity hasn't really dropped in any sense. It has remained the same or it has increased, as a lot of the studies have shown. But what that in turn does is show that the employees and the teams are now more exhausted than ever. So again, when she says that self-assessed productivity has remained the same or higher, it came at a human cost, and burnout and lack of disconnecting is that human cost. Now, moving forward, burnout is a very real thing. The WHO, so the World Health Organization, under the 11th revision of their International Classification of Diseases, has now defined what burnout is, along with providing 3 main criteria of what burnout looks like. So they describe burnout as a result of chronic workplace stress, or any kind of stress for that matter, that is not being successfully managed. It's characterized by 3 main criteria. So the first is the feeling of increased exhaustion or energy depletion without the ability to actually recover from those feelings. The second criteria, there's an increase in feelings of negativity or cynicism towards one's job or one's life-related tasks. So you may see an increase in these kinds of feelings over a period of time when you're experiencing or on your way to burning out. And then the third criteria is that you're noticing that there's a reduction in your professional efficacy. So what I mean by that is that there is an increase in procrastination and a decrease in motivation to take initiative on work-related tasks or projects. Now, among some of the elements that, or the criteria that the WHO has provided, there are a whole bunch of physical, emotional, and behavioral symptoms that also arise out of being burned out, or if you are on your way to being burned out. So these are some things that you can take note or take into consideration if you start to have some of those feelings. Now, some of the physical symptoms include things like being tired and exhausted throughout the day. Your immunity is lowered. There's changes in appetite. So either you're eating a lot more, or maybe you're eating a lot less, or the frequency in which you eat has changed drastically from what you're used to. There might be changes in your sleep pattern. So this doesn't always mean just lack of sleep. It could also include things like not sleeping, or sleeping in, or being restless throughout the night when you used to be able to comfortably sleep and be restful in the morning. So things like that. And then another physical symptom you may notice are frequent headaches or muscle pain. And maybe those are things that you haven't felt before, but all of a sudden they start to arise and you're noticing it a little bit more. So those are some of the physical symptoms that you may experience or you may see in somebody else when they are experiencing burnout or on their way to burnout. Now let's talk about the emotional symptoms, because there are emotional symptoms too. When we talk about emotional symptoms, we're talking about things like what the WHO said, so loss of motivation. It could be loss of motivation, not just in the workplace, but in all areas of life or all facets of life. There is an increased sense of failure and an increased sense of self-doubt. So if you're constantly doubting your decisions or doubting yourself, or you constantly feel like you're failing, this could be a symptom of the fact that you may be on your way to burnout. There is an increase in detachment and disengagement just from life in general. So again, not just from work, but this could apply in all areas of our lives. You might experience feelings of helplessness, feeling trapped, feeling defeated. And then, like the WHO mentioned in their criteria, there is that increase in cynical or negative thought processes. So again, if these are things that you have never really experienced prior to, like pre-pandemic or before, a certain period of time where you're experiencing a really drastic change, this could be an indicator that you are on your way to burning out or you're already there. Now, when we talk about behavioral symptoms, we're looking at things like procrastination. So if you're by nature not someone who procrastinates on tasks, work-related, life-related, etc., if your procrastination is increasing, this could be a result of the fact that you are in that burnout stage. You might find yourself isolating yourself. So for someone who is relatively social, we did spend a lot of time, being isolated, being away from friends and family, because that was what was required of us if they were outside of our social bubbles. There might be things like withdrawing from your day-to-day responsibilities. So maybe things that you used to find joy in, you no longer find joy in, even if it's part of your daily routine. Things like using food, drugs, or alcohol to cope. This is a really big one, especially during when a lot of us were in lockdown. You see the social media posts of people having a couple drinks here and there, but you started to see that become more frequent, and not just on the weekends, but on a daily basis. That could be a mechanism in which people used to cope. And unfortunately, it was a way that a lot of people did use to cope because there was not another outlet for them to cope. And then things like skipping work, coming in late, leaving early, and just essentially kind of detaching yourself from those responsibilities that you had. So again, alongside the 3 criteria that the WHO has put out to define what burnout is, there are a lot of physical, emotional, and behavioral symptoms that come along with burning out. Now, something I want you to think about, and oftentimes I ask this to myself just to make sure that I'm in check. But I ask myself, am I living to work or am I working to live? Now, this is an opportunity to make an assessment. Ideally, the goal is working to live. You work so you can provide housing, support your families, do things that genuinely make you happy as an individual. It brings about, feelings of satisfaction, feelings of accomplishment because you've accomplished something. You want to find purpose in your work as well. So something to ask yourself, especially when we're going through these phases of burnout and, making those self-assessments is, am I living to work or am I working to live? Just something to think about. Now I want to ask you, so just take a guess here, but what percentage of Canadians have actually reported feeling burnt out? 76%, 84%, 93%, 67%. Take a wild guess and let me know what your thoughts are here. Oh, I love it. 1 vote for each one. That's perfect. Amazing. Okay. You guys were so close, but 84%. So 84% of Canadians have reported feeling burnt out amid the pandemic, according to a survey conducted by Ceridian, an HR software company. That is a huge number based on the sample size that they received from. So again, those feelings of burnout, those emotional, behavioral, and physical symptoms, along with actually being burnt out, is a very real occurrence among Canadians today. Now, I want to ask you, and again, all your responses are anonymous. Have you ever experienced burnout, whether it be recently, whether it be in the past, or whether you're currently feeling like you're headed in that direction? Let me know. And again, I'm asking a question that that hits deep. So, if you're not comfortable responding, I completely understand. But again, all your responses are anonymous. So it looks like the majority of us, yes, there's a couple no's, there's a couple yeses, that burnout has occurred. And you know what, for those of us who have experienced it, who are feeling like we're experiencing it, there are ways to get out of that. And for those of us who have not experienced it, that's amazing. That just signifies that you have found a way in which to cope appropriately so that you don't get to that point. And this is the whole purpose of this workshop, is to really understand the different ways in which you can disconnect in order to avoid getting to that point. So thank you so much for your responses. I really do appreciate that. Now that we talked about a lot of the statistics and the studies, and it seemed a little dreary at first, we're going to head into some of the fun stuff. So how to actually fight burnout. So there are a variety of different ways to avoid burning out or to work through the feelings of burnout. And then in the next few slides, we're going to be talking about self-care. It's a huge buzzword nowadays, but we're really going to talk about what it really means. We're going to talk about shifting your perspective. So a mindset reset, setting some boundaries, as well as seeking connections. So let's talk about self-care. Self-care is truly and honestly whatever you want it to be. You are taking time to care for yourself and your well-being, and it is selfishly setting time for you to do anything that brings you relaxation, joy, happiness, and just overall calm. Social media has this awesome way of making you believe that self-care means you have to spend a tremendous amount of money, either traveling somewhere extravagant or taking a really extravagant spa day. And again, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that version. If that is how you practice self-care, by all means. But again, self-care also includes things like prioritizing your sleep. So creating a nightly routine or redecorating your space to make it conducive for good quality sleep. So that could mean things like keeping your devices outside of the bedroom so that you're not endlessly scrolling at night. It could mean doing a quick refresh of your bedroom. So repainting your bedroom, finding sheets that are super comfortable and that you like. Could be adding blackout curtains so that there's no light that seeps in. Anything that allows you to help you get a good night's rest. When we talk about nutrition, good food heals. And Charlotte, you mentioned earlier today, before we had this, before we started the workshop, that you started to prioritize eating better and making better food choices. And that truly heals. Eating consistently well is going to help your body function at its best, even if it's at its cellular level. When we're in the midst of burnout, fast food, takeout options, anything that you can just grab and go may be really easy, but easy doesn't always mean good for us. Having food ready so that you know you're fueling yourself well, even on those days where you feel like you can't seem to get a meal on the stove, or when putting a meal on the stove is challenging. So again, getting into the habit of having small things prepared, having your vegetables washed and cut up so you can grab and go, having options available so that we're not turning to the fastest or easiest option there. And then prioritizing activity and exercise. So it is a scientific fact that when we move our bodies during physical activity and exercise, there is a release in endorphins, our happy hormones, and a decrease in our cortisol production, which is our stress hormone. Activity doesn't always mean it has to be this crazy workout that leaves you breathless and exhausted and sore for days on end. That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about activity. It can be as simple as going out for a 30-minute walk each day. Whether it be first thing in the morning before everyone is up, it's super quiet at night if you're an early bird, or maybe it's after dinner to help with digestion. But just doing something to get you moving, get your body moving, whatever makes you happy. If you don't like to run, okay, you do not have to run for your physical activity. And I'm a big preacher of that. If you don't like to do an activity, then find an activity that you do enjoy doing. I think it's very imperative that we do that so that we enjoy the things we spend our time doing. Now, again, I preach walking. I personally walk every day on top of getting my workouts in, because those are the things that make me happy. But walking is awesome because it's very low impact. No equipment is required except for your running shoes and maybe a rain jacket on those rainy days. And you can literally do it anywhere. So whether you're on vacation, whether you're at work, taking a 15-minute break just to get out and stretch out the legs, an awesome way to get that in. And then finally, setting some time for your hobbies, interests, and some time away. So you're asking yourself things like, what is something I can do or I can get lost in doing? So is that reading? Is that knitting? Is that playing sports? Is it learning a new language? Is it painting? Self-care is giving yourself that time to dive into those hobbies and interests and make them a real and consistent part of your day. So I'm sure that each and every one of us has that one thing where we're like, if I had a little bit of time, I would do that one thing, right? Okay, that is the time that you are selfishly setting aside so that you can pursue that one hobby or that one activity that just lit up in your mind when I said that. Now, disconnecting can mean a number of different things just based on how it resonates with you. It can be physically disconnecting from all of your devices. It could be turning off your notifications or turning them on silent when you do need a couple minutes of alone time. It could be leaving your devices in one area of the house while you go out and partake in your hobbies. It could be whatever you want it to be. Again, it does require you to take some time to reflect and be honest about what you want to do with your time, because a lot of us don't have a lot of time to allocate to a variety of different things. So we are very careful with that. So when we're prioritizing our self-care, again, whatever it is that you want it to be, we want to make sure we prioritize our sleep, our food habits, our exercise and activity habits, as well as try to set a little bit of time each week or each day for your hobbies, your interests, and maybe some time away. Okay. So now I want to hear from you. What is something that you do for yourself each day or a semi-regular basis that's not related to work or life, but that allows you to disconnect if you have something to do right now? Let me know. I know for myself, I'm a CrossFitter. I know the running joke is that CrossFitters will always let you know. But yes, that just seems to make me really happy. Having a barbell in my hands fulfills the activity side and the exercise side, but it also allows me to take a breather and focus on something else. Oh, I love this. Cooking, yes. Walk in nature, amazing. I feel like we've got some hikers here. Walking, bike riding, yoga, all really amazing things. So these are all proponents of self-care. Cooking, watching TV, hiking, playing piano, facial treat. Yep, I love it. Again, spa days are fantastic. If that is your version of self-care, I commend you and I want you to keep doing it. Watch TV maybe a little too much. That's okay. There's some really good shows being uploaded on Netflix and Amazon Prime right now. I totally get it. Walking, playing piano, amazing. So all of these things, ladies and gentlemen, you are doing already. And it's just now a matter of taking that time to continue to give yourself time to do these things. Okay. So let's talk about shifting your perspective. And I really want to preface this by saying that this is not an easy feat. It does take a lot of time and a lot of practice to shift our mindset a little bit. So shifting our perspective or our mindset is simply just practicing ways to change the thought processes in our head. Again, it's not super easy to do, but it is possible if we're consistent and we consistently practice those change in thought processes. Now, when we're talking about shifting your perspective, we're talking about taking a thought like this: I hate doing laundry, okay? And we're going to change one word and we're going to say, I get to do laundry. It's approaching your thoughts with a sense of gratitude. Now, we're not trying to blanket how you truly feel about laundry. If you really hate laundry, like that is okay. But we're trying to work towards changing the negative narrative to a more lighthearted narrative. This, again, we're not trying to be overly positive either. There are a lot of situations in life that we can't always say, it's fine, everything is fine. I'm a big advocate of making sure that you take the time to process the different emotions that you feel when you go through different life events. However, making sure that those thought processes that we endure are not completely negative or self-deprecating in any way, where we can change certain words or vocabulary to make sure we approach it with a more open and a lighthearted narrative. So again, instead of going, I hate, maybe we're changing it to I get to. Little things like that over time will start to shift that perspective just a little bit. Now, the second way that we shift our perspective is asking yourself what you have in control right at that moment. So if you are, presented with a situation, what is it that you can control right then? We think a lot about how we aren't in control of things around us, but we sometimes forget that we do have a lot of control in other areas. So we have control in things like how many hours of sleep we get each night, our eating habits, our activity, how much time we spend with the people that you love, how you allocate your time between work, play, and downtime, along with many others. So the question that you want to ask yourself when you're getting to that point where we think a lot about all the things we don't have control over is, what do I have control over right at this moment? What is it that I can do right now that'll help me shift that perspective? And again, it takes years. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, and I don't think it's bad news, but it's just the reality. When you're making a shift in your mindset, especially, it's going to take time and a lot of persistence. And so it's not always about being perfect right away and being like, oh yes, I have created a mindset shift, I am forever okay. It's not necessarily like that. It's going to be more so about, okay, this is how I'm feeling today. How am I going to process it? And what are the thoughts that I'm going to allow to go through in my head? Again, constant practice. Now let's talk about boundaries. I love talking about boundaries for the reason that this is also another buzzword that's been coming up a lot, and for a very good reason. And it's been really helpful in a lot of different areas of people's lives. So boundary setting for some, it comes quite easily without faltering on what those boundaries are once they are set. For others, it's a little more challenging. So for all of my people pleasers and caregivers out there, this can be somewhat of a challenge. So you're asking yourself this: when we are setting boundaries, what high value activities, relationships, and tasks trigger unhealthy amounts of stress? When we establish those high stress inducing activities, relationships, and tasks, we can begin to set our boundaries from there. So for example, let's say you have a friendship that you find incredibly exhausting because all that occurs when you meet or see each other is just constant complaining about everything. And that may just be the only form of communication that you have when you meet. Your boundary then, and again, this will take some time to set, is maybe reducing the amount of time you spend with that person. Now, as a side note, you are the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Now, you may not think so. However, there is a really big influence from the 5 people that you spend the most time with on you as an individual. So if you surround yourself with people who have really poor habits, who maybe do things that you don't feel comfortable doing all the time, where, there is constant complaining, that starts to show in your behaviors as well. And you may not recognize that right away. So just something to take into consideration when we're talking about that example. Now, when we're talking about other examples of boundary setting, this can include things like setting office hours you stick to. This is a tough one, and I understand, and there is an asterisk beside avoiding responses to emails after hours, because I do understand in the corporate world and in our world, sometimes there are things that need to be responded to after hours, but we have to make sure that we're not constantly allocating that time and saying, oh, this is super important, I need to respond to it right away. Is it actually time sensitive, or are you creating a deadline for yourself? Think of it that way. Now, when we talk about setting office hours, this is something I'm guilty of. Again, I have really wonky hours because I try to accommodate all of my corporate clients. And then I also have, coaching hours that I do offsite. And trying to balance the two and making sure I'm not answering emails at 12 a.m. or I'm not responding at 4 o'clock in the morning when I am awake. So just making sure that, again, this is a practice that I have to implement as well, but making sure that I have set office hours, not only for myself, but for my clients as well. It's a form of respect when you don't send those really weird hour emails. So just working on setting strict hours that you stick to, unless there is time sensitive responses that you need. The second way in which you can reset your boundaries is to reset your expectations with those around you. And this is applicable in all areas of life. So what I mean by this is, I have relationships with really good friends who have voiced that most weekends are off limits due to them taking the weekend to spend time with their partner that they don't usually get to see during the week due to conflicting work schedules. So when we do plan social events and things like that, we try to make it so that they are either during the week, or if there is a weekend, we'll try and leave it open for weeks in advance so they can plan for it. Those are the kinds of expectations that are set. There are also other expectations that we've set for each other as friends and through relationships by saying, if there's something that you don't want to talk about right away, and that's something that's occurring in your life, you are allowed to tell those people, say, hey, I am going through something right now, but I don't feel comfortable sharing. And that's okay to say. Again, if you want to share, by all means, but again, it's just another way to reset the expectations with the relationships that you currently have around you. So again, boundary setting is challenging. It's challenging in the sense that you're almost working towards saying no to things, or, you're working towards being a little bit more stringent on your office hours. But again, in the long run, it is your time that you're protecting and your mentality through it. So boundary setting. Now let's talk about seeking connections. Interpersonal connections are vital to our mental health and our continued socialization. We want to make sure we foster and create positive relationships with coaches, mentors, friends, and families. And in order to do this, to seek that connection, you can do things like call a friend or a family member you haven't spoken to in a while and just catch up. Don't schedule it. When's the last time we've done that, right? Just call them, just see how they're doing. And if they're busy, call them another day. Maybe it's seeking out groups that pertain to your interests. So I'm an avid hiker. I just love getting out in nature. It just calms me down. So there's a lot of hiking groups on social media that are available, either if you want to go with someone, or if you just want to share your experiences so that other people can go through the same hike and have an understanding of what to look for. And then a question that you want to ask yourselves every so often is, who are the people that you look up to? What are their core values, and why are those values important to you? That's going to help you establish who your mentors will be, who you want to potentially go to be coached through anything and everything. So again, call a friend, a family member you haven't spoken to. Don't text them to schedule a time, just call them. Right? We do that. I know we do. I know I do that every so often, but it's nice getting that random phone call from your friend or family that you haven't heard from. It's just a nice way to reconnect. Seek out those groups that pertain to your interests. So there, again, what are you interested in? There are tons of ways that you can connect with like-minded people out there, which is awesome. And then asking yourself, who are the people that you look up to, and what are their values, and why are those values important to you? So ways to seek connection. Okay, I'm just gonna pop into that. Seeking connection, yes, Charlotte. Join a co-working space. I love that. That's perfect for the Village Hive. Again, you're all going into an area where you're with like-minded people. It's a great way to connect with people from all walks of life. It's perfect. Amazing. And then now let me ask you, from everything that we reviewed today and everything that we discussed, what is it that you can do today to help you avoid burning out? Is it continuing what you're doing because you've kind of established how you want to disconnect? Is it potentially reaching out to that friend or family member you haven't spoken to in a while? What is it that you can do today to help you avoid burning out? Let me know. I see everyone thinking. I really like it. I can see everyone pondering. Walk with someone. Go on vacation. Yes, please go on vacation if you have the opportunity to do so. Call a friend. I really hope that if you do call a friend that you won't text them first, just call them randomly and just see what happens. Nothing but positives. Yes. Set boundaries on phone. I love that. Start running again. Fantastic. Reach out to friends, spend time with family. I love these. So I hope that what you can take away from this workshop are these things and that you start to implement slowly but surely. Again, it's not about making sure that we get those habits into place right away. It's about slowly building that consistency over time. So again, for example, someone wrote starting running again. If it's setting a kilometer goal for the week, let's say week 1, you're going to accumulate 10 kilometers in 7 days. It doesn't matter how you do it. It doesn't matter when you do it. Just by the end of the week, we'll get to 10. And then you do that consistently for 3 to 4 weeks. And then maybe you'll add 5 more kilometers. Maybe week 6, you're like, okay, we're going to start hitting 15 kilometers. It doesn't matter how we get there. We're just going to continue to work towards that. Just slowly building that consistency over time. Like bake with the kids. Yes, that sounds really fun. An accountability buddy, huge. If you can find someone who can be your accountability buddy to hold you accountable for the habits that you're trying to implement or the boundaries that you're trying to set, it is a great way to make sure you stay on track. Again, with accountability buddies, you want to make sure that you're finding someone who will also hold you accountable. So it's not just a one-way street. It's going to work both ways. There's a thing called tough love, and that will come out every so often. So make sure that when you are choosing your accountability buddy, that you do find someone who isn't afraid to give you tough love. Listening to soothing music. I love these. These are amazing. Say no. Please say no more often. Say no to the things that you do not want to do. And it is okay to say no. It is also okay to say no without giving an explanation. Wild, right? So if you're invited to an event and you just don't feel like going, you just want to go home, you are not obligated to give anyone an explanation as to why you said no. It is the most liberating thing that you can do, because you're essentially putting your time first, which is really important to us. So just say no, but don't give a reason. Just try it and see what happens. The world will not change, I promise. All right. Thank you all so much for submitting your responses. These are fantastic. And I just want to turn this over to you. Does anyone have any questions about any of the content that we went over, or just want to work through something that maybe it's a boundary that you want to set? Does anyone have any questions at all? Okay, well, that's all right, not to worry. Before we head out, before I let you go, we do have some amazing partnerships with some awesome companies. And we have some discount codes for you to use should you be interested in trying this out. So True Local is a meat delivery service. It's a subscription-based service where you can choose the different types of meats that you have delivered right to your door. They have amazing products. Their turkey bacon is to die for. So feel free to use the discount code rxRecourse Fit. And magnesium. We often don't get enough magnesium through our day. So we've partnered up with a gentleman who used to go to our brick and mortar facility, and he has this company called iMag, and they provide the purest form of magnesium. It is a spray. You can spray it in your drinks, in your protein shakes, whatever it may be, to ingest it, or it's topical as well. Feel free to check them out. And then finally, for those of you who are looking to make a home gym or are outfitting a home gym, or just need some equipment to get moving each day, Fit It Out is a local company in Oakville who provides gym equipment. High quality gym equipment that's fantastic. The coaches at rxRecourse have had an opportunity to work with it, and it's been awesome. So if you are looking for that stuff, please feel free to use the discount code there to help get a little bit of a discount on your first purchase. Okay. So just thank you so much for everyone popping into our workshop today. I really enjoyed taking you all through this. If you do have questions that pop up throughout regarding health, wellness, nutrition, anything related, please feel free to email us. We're always available to you. Our next workshop is going to be in the 3rd week of June on the Wednesday, and we're going to go through some fun information for our next one. Thank you so much.